Hello everyone! Today we are going to crochet these fingerless mittens together. Even beginners will be able to make them. Let us take a closer look at these mittens. It feels like they were knitted with needles, but no, they are actually crocheted. This is sideways crochet, which mimics the look of knitting. These mittens are very easy to make, so even a beginner can follow my tutorial and make them. This is how the mittens look when you wear them. As you can see, they are very elastic, they follow the shape of your hand, and they look quite interesting. If you like, you can make them a bit longer to cover your wrist. As I mentioned, they have a very interesting pattern that imitates knitting. It is very easy to crochet, so do not worry. It will take you just one evening and your mittens will be ready. They are very comfortable. I am squeezing and releasing my hands and the mittens return to their original shape. The mittens have a seam. It goes right here. And over here. Here is the seam. And here it is too. But this seam is invisible and it does not get in the way at all. Let us take a look at how the mittens look right now. So let us start crocheting. You can make these mittens from absolutely any yarn that you like. But if the thickness of your yarn is different from mine, then you will need to cast on a different number of stitches. I will be using this self-striping yarn. It has about 90 meters and 50 grams. I am going to use a crochet hook number 5. And when you choose your yarn and hook, you should also pick a hook size that is about 2 sizes larger than what is recommended for the yarn. This is necessary because of the specific pattern. It needs to be crocheted loosely. Using a large crochet hook will allow you to crochet loosely so that the fabric turns out exactly as we need it. I am chaining 30 stitches to make mittens of the size I want, which is the height I need. Since we are crocheting sideways, we are casting on the length of the mittens from the cuff to the top. Take a look, it goes from here to here. If you are using yarn of a different thickness, then make a chain that is about 20% longer than the desired length of your mittens. This is because the length will shrink by about that much later on due to the nature of the pattern. We are casting on stitches from here to here in order to crochet sideways. If you want a longer mitten so that the cuff is larger, then of course you need to chain more stitches. If you are using a thicker yarn, it is possible that the same number of stitches I am using will be enough for you. So I have crocheted 30 chains. You can make more or a bit less, depending on what size you want the mittens to be and what kind of yarn you have. And now, skipping one stitch, we are making a slip stitch. And in the next stitch, we make another slip stitch. Because I chained 30 stitches and then skipped one stitch as a turning chain, I will have 29 stitches in the row and I will be crocheting 29 slip stitches. I will crochet like this until the end of the row. I am finishing the first row, crocheting the last 2 stitches with slip stitches. Do not forget the last stitch. It is a little tight here, but that is all right. Now we have finished the first row. I have 29 stitches. Next we make a turning chain and turn the work. And look, we have these braids on top. And now for every stitch in every row we are going to crochet into the back loop only. It is just this part of the stitch, right here. But we will still be making slip stitches, just like we did in the first row. The only difference is that now we will crochet into the back loop only. We skip the first stitch, which is the turning chain, and we start crocheting from the first stitch of the row. And we crochet all the stitches with slip stitches into the back loop only. And the reason why we chose a large crochet hook is specifically because we are making this pattern with slip stitches. This is to make sure we do not pull the stitches too tight. If we use the hook size recommended for the yarn you are using, there is a high probability that the fabric will be too dense and the mittens will be uncomfortable to wear. So we are reaching the end of the row and we crochet it until the finish. And make sure to crochet the very last stitch. It is not always clearly visible. To avoid accidentally missing the last stitches, you can count the number of stitches in each row. I have 29 of them, but you might have any other number. Make a turning chain, turn the work to the other side, and crochet another row of slip stitches into the back loop only. This pattern is very elastic and looks just like a ribbing made with knitting needles. This is what we call sideways crochet. Crochet until the end of the row. At the end, make a turning chain and turn the work to the other side. And again crochet the row in exactly the same way. And always remember to crochet the last stitches of the row. So we have made the turning chain, we turn the work, and again we crochet a row of slip stitches into the back loop only. At the beginning and in the middle of the row, the stitches are perfectly visible. But at the end of the row it can be a bit tricky. Look, we are reaching the end of the row and here is the last stitch. It usually hides a little bit, and you must crochet a slip stitch into the back loop of this stitch. Otherwise the fabric will become crooked and the number of stitches in each row will decrease by 1. And so we continue crocheting as many rows as needed to get a rectangle that can wrap around your palm. You see what an elastic fabric we have got. I have crocheted 38 rows here, but you should crochet as many as you need. To find out how many rows are needed, we will do a little test. And by the way, make sure to finish your work so that the yarn tail from the beginning is diagonal to the end of the work. That way the seam will be as invisible as possible. So how do we find out the number of rows needed for the mitten to fit perfectly? We have a very simple test for that. We need to try the fabric around the hand. I am placing my hand against the edge of the crocheted fabric and stretching it slightly. If there is enough width and your hand feels comfortable, then we have finished the required width of the fabric. Now we have the last stitch left and we need to fasten it off. But first, since we are going to sew it together, we need to measure the length of the yarn we will use for the seam. To make sure the yarn is not too short, measure the length of the seam 3 times, or a little less. Cut the yarn. And now to fasten off the last stitch, I am doing this. The next step is sewing the mitten. But before that, we need to figure out where to leave the hole for the thumb. Of course, you could try to measure it this way to figure out where it will be, but that is difficult to do. Look, this will be the seam and here's a seam on top and the thumb hole will be in the middle. But when the mitten is not sewn yet, it is very hard to tell where to leave the space for the thumb. The easiest way to do this is to start sewing the mitten. Then, once we have a seam about 3 or 4 centimeters long, try the mitten on and decide where to leave the thumb hole. So we take a sewing needle and choose which side will be the right side. Look, we have these braids here, just like a 1x1 ribbing on knitting needles. And on this side too. You can pick whichever side you like better as the right side. To make it easier to sew, I will fold the crocheted fabric like this. And now we need to understand which stitches to sew through. The right side is on the inside. That is, we fold it with the right sides together. And we are going to sew it like this. Look, here at the top where the braid is, we will also sew through the back loop only. Do you see these stitches on the right side that look like knit stitches? We will sew through this part, through the back loop only, through these parts here. Now let us see which stitches we will sew through on the other side. At the very beginning there is something like a braid. It is right here on top. There is a row of stitches on it, these little dashes. But we are going to sew through the next row, which is the next row of dashes. So here is the starting row, followed by a row of stripes, but we will sew through the row after that, through these stitches. This will result in the most invisible seam possible. But if you sew through a different row, it is no big deal. It will still look good. So, since the yarn is at the top, we pull the needle from top to bottom and pass it through the first stitch. I will not tighten the seam yet so you can see better how I am sewing. At the bottom, I pull the needle through the next stitch, and at the top, I return the needle to the same stitch where the yarn came out. Here again into the next stitch, and at the top I return the needle to the same stitch where the yarn came out. And I keep going like this. It turns out that the thread in the seam goes in a kind of zigzag. Of course, as we sew, we need to tighten the yarn. And you should do this right away. Now I'm going to pull all these loose stitches tight. I have tightened it. Now the seam looks like this. We continue sewing in exactly the same way. Return to the same stitch at the top where the yarn came out, then into the next stitch, and so on. And so we sew for about 3 or 4 centimeters. If this sewing method is not very clear or you do not like it, you can sew in any other way you prefer or know. You can join it with a crochet hook, or you can use some other sewing method with a needle. The seam from the inside, or rather from the right side, looks like this. And now you can try the mitten on to understand where to leave the thumb hole. You can even try it on inside out without turning it to the right side. Let us see and try it on to find where the thumb goes. This is about where I want it. You see, I need to sew about 2 more centimeters. I will finish sewing it. I am sewing the mitten for about this much more distance. So I have finished sewing. Let us try it on again. Yes, we can leave the hole for the thumb here. And now I will try it on to see how many stitches I need to leave. Something like this. I think that is enough. And now I will count how many stitches I need to skip. 7 stitches. Yes, I need to skip 7 stitches for the thumb hole. And then I will continue sewing until the end. You should try it on your own hand, based on your yarn and the size you want. To secure the joining point here so it does not come apart, you can make a little knot like this. Then it definitely will not open. And so, as not to cut the yarn and then have to hide the yarn ends, you can go along one of the sides, counting 7 stitches for the thumb hole to reach the required spot. Do not pull the yarn too tight here. It is better to leave it a bit loose. Pull it like this. You need to secure the yarn here first too. On the other side, you also need to count 7 stitches, and starting from the 8th stitch, continue sewing. Also at the beginning, at the joining point, you need to secure the stitches as well. I am tightening it and then I continue sewing until the end in exactly the same way as I did before. There we go. Pay attention, do not accidentally switch to another row as I did. You need to look carefully and continue sewing until the very end. So I have finished, only the very last stitch is left at the end. We secure the seam at the end. Then we will hide the yarn ends. Let us turn the mitten to the right side. I have not hidden the tails yet. The seam looks like this. Let us try it on. The seam is here and here. Everything looks neat. The last step is to crochet the thumb. Just like here, we will crochet it so that our thumb is half covered, or maybe a little bit more. To do this, take the yarn. We are going to crochet on the right side. We hide the tail inside. We will hide it later. Use the same hook that was used for the main fabric of the mitten. We will also crochet the rows with slip stitches into the back loop only. First, we will secure the yarn. To do this, insert the hook, grab the yarn, pull it through and make a chain stitch. After that, crochet slip stitches into the back loop only. And at the same time we are hiding, look, you can see the yarn a little bit. We will hide this yarn as we crochet the row of slip stitches. Crochet along. Here is the last stitch, and there are no more stitches after that. Next, we will crochet a slip stitch into the spot where we made the knot for the seam. Let us count how many stitches we have got here. Do not count the first one because it is hidden. 7 stitches. We do not count this first one. And here we will crochet another 7 stitches in exactly the same way. There are no braids here anymore, so just crochet by grabbing onto the fabric. We crochet 7 slip stitches. The last one goes into the seam. Let us recount the number of stitches. That is correct, there were 7 here and 7 on the other side as well. Now we are going to crochet in the round also with slip stitches into the back loop only. You can decide for yourself how many rows to crochet, whatever is more convenient for you. I am going to crochet 8 rows. Now it will be a little bit awkward to crochet. Because we are crocheting in the round now, we are working in a spiral. So the pattern will look a little bit different, but also very interesting. And so we crochet with slip stitches into the back loop only. Continue crocheting until you get the desired thumb size for your mitten. And using such a large crochet hook here also allows us not to pull the fabric too tight. And so we crochet into every stitch with slip stitches into the back loop only. We are already crocheting the second row. Well, we have finished 2 rows, and you can also try it on to see if it is comfortable. Everything is fine for me, so I will continue crocheting. I have crocheted 2 rows, so I need 6 more rows. Look, it is turning out quite neatly. You see, it is turning out nicely. This pattern fits our thumb better on the other side. And so I have crocheted 8 rows. But do not finish the row down here, crochet it until the top. This way it will look neater and the join will be less noticeable. So we have finished. Now I am cutting the yarn. Fasten it off. And look, we have a step here which is not very pretty. To get rid of this step, we will pull the yarn through the next stitch like this. Do you see the step is gone? We will hide this yarn later. And that is it. One mitten is ready. You just need to hide the tails. We crochet the second one in exactly the same way. There are no differences. This is how they turned out. Very simple, easy and quick. And they look interesting. And they are comfortable too. Thank you for crocheting with me. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel and see you in the next videos.